With the iPhone 16 Pro Max, Apple was able to reclaim that top spot in our battery test rankings, and today, in its first title defense, it's going up against arguably the #1 contender right now in the OPPO Find X8 Pro, which in addition to being powered by MediaTek's new 3nm Dimensity 9400, has a whopping 5,910 mAh silicon carbon battery, which compared to the iPhone's 4,685 mAh, should give the phone a huge advantage. Of course, the iPhone is the champ for a reason, with it being powered by Apple's own A18 Pro chip, along with all of the benefits of Apple controlling both the hardware and the software on their phones. Will that be enough for the iPhone's reign to continue, or are we looking at a new champ? But before we find out, quick disclosure, we did partner up with OPPO on our channel recently and they did give us this unit here, but OPPO didn't have a say in this video, nor did they get a preview of this video before publishing. So with that out of the way, let's get right into it. Alright, we'll kick things off in the phone test, where each device is going on the same 1-hour phone call. Now, some phones like the X8 Pro don't get tricked by our robots when we covered the proximity sensor, so to make sure that both phones are getting an equal amount of screen on time, we turned the X8's display off for the first 48 minutes of the test, and then back on for the remaining 12, which is how much the iPhone gets in total, where after 1 hour, both phones are still reporting 100%. Of course, those battery indicators are only estimates, and sometimes manufacturers do tend to over-report on battery early on, so we'll have to see how the phones do here in messaging, where each phone is texting back and forth with our automated chatbot. The screens on both phones have been calibrated to the same 200 nits of brightness, and they're both within equal distance of the mini cell tower in our lab, where 60 minutes into it, the X8 Pro does 1 point better. Obviously, we are very early in this test at this point, so it's not something that I would read too much into, but generally my confidence in these estimates goes up as the test progresses, where after an hour of reading emails, we don't see any changes. Both phones drop by the same 5 points, which means due to its smaller battery, technically the iPhone was more efficient. But it's this browser test that I've been waiting for, since this is the first test that really taxes those chipsets. And it'll show us if OPPO's decision to go with the Dimensity 9400 instead of the Snapdragon 8 Elite was a good decision, where after 1 hour of randomly launching the same set of websites and then scrolling through them, it looks like it was, at least in terms of battery, with the X8 Pro not only doing 2 points better than the iPhone, but technically it was more efficient too. Meaning, as we head into Instagram, the Find X8 Pro has the highest percentage I think we've ever seen on a phone at this point, at 85% just over 4 hours in. Now, this Instagram test is pretty simple. We're just scrolling through the home feed like you would in real life, and while it's not super intensive by any means, it does at least get those screens to ramp up their refresh rates, where this time the phones perform identically once again, each dropping by only 5 points. So this is a close one as we head into the 16-hour standby. While the X8 Pro currently has the lead, we've seen the iPhone make a comeback in the second day time and time again. But at least through the 16-hour-long standby, wow, the X8 Pro drops by only 5 points, while the iPhone drops by twice as much, draining by 10 points, giving the OPPO an 8-point lead as we start working on YouTube. Now, it's not like we haven't seen an Android phone ahead of the iPhone at this point. The Galaxy S24 Ultra, for example, was ahead here, but when it did it, it was only up by 1 point. The X8 Pro is up by 8, which is kind of crazy. But quick note I want to make is, in addition to calibrating the screens to the same level of brightness, we've also calibrated the speakers on each phone to the same decibel count, where the iPhone was able to stop the bleeding after an hour, matching the X8 Pro's performance exactly. And the iPhone may just have a chance to make up some ground here in gaming, with us playing Alto's Adventure, which, while it isn't the most intensive game out there, it's nothing like Call of Duty Warzone, it is still rendering those frames and taxing the GPU. So if the A18 Pro can prove to be more efficient here, it may just cut down on the OPPO's lead. But that didn't happen. In fact, it was the opposite, with the X8 Pro doing significantly better, consuming only 7 points of its battery compared to the iPhone's 10. Meaning, heading into maps, the X8 Pro now has a double-digit lead. One thing that I do want to point out from that gaming test is the X8 Pro didn't just use up less of its battery due to its capacity, but it was also technically more efficient too, at least if we were to go off those battery indicators. With the X8 Pro using up 413 milliamp hours of its capacity compared to the iPhone's 468. And it's the same story after an hour of simulated navigation, with the X8 Pro doing better once again. So things aren't looking so good for the champ, with it trailing by 13 points as we start working on Spotify. For your reference, the Galaxy S24 Ultra was at 45% here, where the iPhone was still able to make a comeback by the end of it. But I don't know if that's in the cards here today, with the iPhone continuing to fall behind after an hour of listening to music. It was only by 1 point, so the iPhone technically was more efficient in that test, using only 421 milliamp hours of its battery compared to the X8's 472. But obviously, with its smaller overall capacity, there's only so much that the iPhone can do. We'll see how it performs here in Snapchat, which is arguably the most intensive test so far, with it using the camera, the microphone and speakers, the storage, and even Wi-Fi as we add these videos to our story, where after an hour, oh man, the X8 Pro pulls another 5 points ahead. Usually it's the iPhone that does better, but not this time, meaning heading into the last stage of this battery test in App Cycle, where we're opening up the same set of apps, closing them all, and then repeating that in a loop, the OPPO is 19 points ahead. That's impressive against any phone, but to be this far against the current #1 ranked phone in our battery test is really impressive. After an hour of App Cycle, the iPhone is finally able to cut down on the X8 Pro's lead, but it's only by 1 point, so now it's an 18-point difference. And the trend continues for the next hour until the iPhone dies at 2 hours and 1 minute into it, at which point the X8 Pro is at 16%. So there you have it. The X8 Pro gets the win, with that 16% not only making it all the way to the 3-hour mark, but lasting 3 hours and 18 minutes, meaning it beats the iPhone by over an hour, making it the new PhoneBuff style battery test champ. Anyways, that is it for me in this video. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the very next episode.